So much blame to go around. I don't usually editorialize at the start of these match reviews, but after today, in what was the worst match of the Hansi Flick era, yep, that's what I said, not being hyperbolic, the worst match of the Hansi Flick era, I thought there's some things that I just wanted to get off my chest right at the start. I'm usually not so negative. Actually, for those who are usually with me on the channel or the podcast, you know I'm really never this negative. But today, with the performance that we saw, is a day to criticize a team that A, has brought me a ton of joy over the last 2 seasons, and B, is likely very fine, and more than fine, honestly, this season, but they have to kind of regain that trust a little bit after the international break that they really have learned from this very hard lesson. And for a manager that has given me more joy for the stuff that's happening on the field, then I'll be honest, any manager over the last 8 seasons that I've been doing this show, Hansi Flick does deserve some criticism today, and there are some questions finally being asked of him in year number 2, when managers have had a lot of time to figure out his system and figure out what he likes to do. And it is a bit more than just fatigue. The reason why I say today starts with Flick is that the pressing system doesn't really look like it worked well today or against PSG. Clearly, PSG were more disciplined, and you could chalk that up to PSG being the best in Europe last season, and Barca not yet being at that level. And that's the level of PSG. That's the level you need to win the Champions League. But we know in the Liga, you don't really need to be at that level. You just need to be at a consistent, good enough level to pick up the 3 points, regardless of how that happens. Meaning, Barcelona, you're more talented than Sevilla, so a 4-1 loss to Sevilla is just unacceptable. As a team, Barcelona needs to not only be at Sevilla's level, but way above Sevilla's level. And there were so many individual moments to point at individual players that we could also throw around blame to. So I would say in this 5 headlines, I'm going to criticize a lot of different players, but I'm not really keying in and saying that's a player that I hate, I've got an agenda, and I've got a problem. There is no player that played for FC Barcelona today that doesn't deserve a little bit of blame and a little bit of criticism for their performance in, again, what was a rough 4-1 defeat. Really was 2-1, but we talked about the possible scores that Sevilla could have had as well in the beginning, and Barcelona could have been down by more than 2-0. So before you point to some of the individual moments that are going to frustrate you and you say, that's a player that I don't like and that's a problem, I'll just name them for you. Lewandowski can't miss that penalty. Rooney doesn't finish when it was 3v1. Tech didn't have an important save. Koundé gave the ball away. Araujo caused the PK. Those were the moments, but then you have the absent performances as well, where there's not a singular moment we can blame a player, but Olmo and Ferran Torres, they were completely absent today. Or there are players who were lower than their usual levels in De Jong or Gerard Martin. It was all around bad from everybody wearing Blaugrana today. As I already said, I usually don't go on those long monologues at the beginning, but today was a little different kind of day. I still need to welcome you to the show. So welcome to episode 732 of the Barcelona Podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and as I said, for all the doom and gloom in the last 2 matches, I really want to appreciate everybody on the YouTube channel helping me to get to 50,000. Hey, we are on our way now. Let's get to 100,000. Please help me with that. Or give a good rating if you just have me in your ears on the podcast apps, or the Patreon for as low as $3. You can get these shows without the ads. All right, I would hate to do it. Yeah, I don't like this at all, but here they are, the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 4-1 loss to Sevilla. Headline 1 is flatter than a pancake. The cracks were from minute 1 of this game. It was a blistering start in terms of energy and pressure and intensity from Sevilla, with Tech having a lot to do. Sevilla doing well to break through that high line, either on the wings or sometimes even through the middle, forcing a number of blocks and just, again, pressure in Barcelona's final third, which is something you never want to see to start a match. Sevilla came in with an anemic offense, the worst in the Liga, but they do take their chances when they're presented with them. And we did see in the opening few minutes that, yeah, it was going to be a little tough. Was it a handball on Olmo? Yeah, that's the first one that Sevilla might have had a shot for. I say no, the ball just bounced up on him. And all that pressure for Sevilla at home leads to the first goal of the game coming already in the 11th minute. Araujo and Romero tussling in the box. VAR tells the ref to look at it after Isaac Romero goes down, and Araujo does have his left arm hooked around the shoulder. The lower body says no, but the upper body, I think, is kind of saying enough. I think there's enough with him with the hand on the shoulder, and the time in which Isaac goes down, he goes down after a little bit of physicality as well. So VAR punishing Araujo. Alexis Sanchez steps to the spot, the former Barcelona player from 2011 to 2014. If you're too young to know what Alexis Sanchez did, where he was lost in a team of stars, but yet he wasn't because he was a key contributor to those teams, look up Alexis Sanchez. Pretty gosh darn good player. He celebrates the PK, though, against his former side, which I never love to see. But, yeah, he's been away for 11 years. And maybe he gets a little bit a pass for that. But it could also be that Sevilla were kind of stinking and he wanted to celebrate in front of the fans at home because they've been cheering on a team that, has not been good enough in the Liga. And Barcelona down 1-0 at that point. Game got kind of ugly and choppy after that with yellow cards for all of Gerard Martin, Marcao, and then Torres, all on sloppy tackles that, just can't happen. Both teams look kind of slow, kind of fatigued, and for Barcelona in the first 16 minutes or so, not good enough. Headline 2 is man marked checkmate. Now let's talk about the tactics a little bit. A number of Sevilla chances, basically in quick succession after the 20th minute. And there was a pattern here. In the 22nd minute, it was another chance for Sevilla, as I said, Carmona at the far post after a low cross. 25th minute, Martin can't clear, Araujo doesn't clear, and Sevilla is still wide again on another opportunity. Then in 27th minute, it's a second man running through the middle on the offside trap. So not the first man who was offside, but Sao gets through, and Isak missing again, and on the corner, it's Tech with a good save. 30th minute, finally some life from Barcelona and Rashford in particular. Barca gets some half chances. But by the time the cooling break had hit in the 33rd minute, I was already trying to figure out, this is not just a 5 minutes or 10 minutes where Sevilla at home had the energy at the beginning. No, this now feels like there are some patterns here and Barcelona being completely outplayed. It seemed to me that Hansi Flick was continuing to, and for good reason, relying on Pedri and De Jong to play through that pressure. But as we saw against PSG, as they're getting man-marked, which they were with three very physical center midfielders that Sevilla had in Agume, Mendy, and Sao. They were doing really well on those two in particular, communicating well, passing them off. It wasn't just one guy shadowing Pedri or one guy shadowing De Jong. No, they were passing them off well in different phases of play. And as we've seen with Matias Almeida in the past, I covered him when he was with the San Jose Earthquakes, where his zonal marking into the man-to-man marking was criminal at times, as in criminally not okay. There was a lack of communication, and it seemed like it was always just utter chaos, a lot of high score lines. And that is kind of the way of Matias Almeida, but you clearly can see over the past few seasons, he went to Greece in the interim, he's learned his lessons, and he's figured a few things out in charge of Sevilla. He said after the match that he was watching and studying Barcelona, and that study seemed to go well for Matias Almeida. Very rarely in that game did you see Ferran Torres, who was kind of playing as a secondary striker. He did start on the left with Rashford on the right, and then quickly that was switched with Rashford then getting on the left and Ferran Torres on the right. But either way, neither of the two were really coming inside to create those numerical overloads. And without Lewandowski having a good first touch in that game, every time he would drop in and receive, it would kind of just bounce off him. You also saw without Joan Garcia and Tech in net instead that those long balls over to Lewandowski just didn't have the same precision, and you lost a little bit of that release valve from the passing of a goalkeeper. Barcelona also, by not being able to go long, couldn't win the second balls. And we also know when you're fatigued and you're running and chasing a game, it's even harder to have the energy to win those second balls and get in and do the dirty work. So there was minimal going forward in 1v1 situations without Lamine Yamal. As well on the wings, it really was just Rashford or bust, which took Olmo and Ferran Torres completely out of this game where they were totally absent. The only time that Barcelona did really have any success was when it went from a center back, and by a center back, I mean Kubarsi or then Eric Garcia in the second half, and they would bypass that midfield pressure completely straight to a forward, either running in behind or to receive in the middle. That was the only real success that Barcelona had in any of their buildup, which meant that there was no support on the wings and barely anything could be built up through the middle. Some of that is a credit to Sevilla and their man marking. Some of it is just, again, sloppiness from Barcelona and not being good enough on the day. By the 35th minute, it really felt like Isak and Sevilla were continuing to build something, and they were closer to the second than Barca were the first, and that wound up being right. Even after he missed in the 35th minute, by the 37th minute, Isak Romero had a goal to celebrate. Sevilla's man marking, as I said, didn't allow Barcelona to get much farther across midfield, and then Koundé loses it. Now, was he fouled here? That's a question I would love to hear from you on, but the ref says no foul, so you got to play on. The ball goes out to Vargas, and the square ball to Isak. He doesn't miss that one. This is a clear-cut, easy chance that anybody who's setting up in the middle of the field for a Liga side should finish. Headline 3 is looking for a way back. Barcelona and Culés know that there is an ability to have a remontada. Usually Rafinha is at the middle of it, and he wasn't there today. But still, Barcelona had the quality to come back if they so chose. 43rd minute, Kubarsi through the middle to Rashford. His shot leads to a corner. And in stoppage time, Barca gets played through again, but Araujo catches up to Alexis Sanchez. Araujo still did have some good defensive moments, even after the PK. And you do wonder about his confidence and where they go forward, that being Hansi Flick with him after the international break, which he did pull out of to keep his fitness. So before we head to the halftime locker rooms, Barcelona do get some kind of lifeline. It's a 2-1, the dime of a ball from Pedri. This is a confident finish from Rashford as well. One-timer at the back post. Of the 5 goals that were scored, this is definitely the prettiest. Had a lot of skill, a lot of technique, and for Rashford also to stay onside was tough to do, but to have the presence of mind to, again, stay onside and then hit that first time, it's real good from Rashford. Yeah, maybe he is confident, but maybe he needs to share some of that confidence with the rest of his teammates. We know that Flick is unafraid to make those second half changes because a number of players have been subbed off at halftime. It's kind of like, hey, I've done this to other players and it's not all just you. I still believe in you. So Araujo and Gerard Martin, hopefully they keep their confidence because it's Balde and Eric Garcia on for them to start the second, where Barcelona, I thought, looked much more controlled to start the second half. Both wingers and Olmo were more prepared to receive a pass from Eric through the middle than from Araujo, so they seemed to be a little more lively there. And the 55th minute, VAR checked the handball on Balde. They're absolutely correct. This is not a pen. He had his hand, even if it was quote-unquote in an unnatural position, he was trying to bring it in close to his body. Not a foul. That's right. But Barcelona were playing with fire again. 64th minute, Pedri the 1-2 with Rashford. A rare shot instead of pass from Pedri inside the box forces the save, and then Eric's header is saved by the keeper on the corner. 69th minute, Torres off for Rooney Bardghji. And I think this is, and I'm going to put this in quotes, the right choice to be taken off, where it was Rashford to come off instead of Torres against PSG. And this time, this was blaringly obvious. It had to be Torres instead of Rashford. Rashford had confidence and belief, and Torres was just lost in this game. Headline 4 is no goal stutter step. Remember, at that point in the match, it was still just a 1-goal deficit for Barcelona, and they were still continuing to build and still continuing to get chances. A few blocked shots. Can't get your head down, got to keep pushing. 73rd minute, here's the push. Balde gets taken down in the box. Ref points to the spot. Zenejai had just come on the field. That was really his first touch, and it's a pen. He pulled him down. Contact started outside the box, but the foul occurred inside the box, so that's a PK. Lewandowski takes it. 2 stutters on the run-up, and Lewandowski goes wide and misses it. Sometimes it's just not your day. Lewandowski just wasn't his day, but I thought he got himself all out of sorts. He usually does do the stutter step, but I felt like he stuttered twice. Once at the second step, and I don't know where he was at, 6th or 7th step, and that meant that the goalkeeper was able to read that, I thought, pretty easily, and Lewandowski just got to be better there. 81st minute, Rooney with a really fine run. Lewandowski flicked it up, and he ran onto it. His dribble got himself inside, but his shot was slow, and the goalkeeper got down to it. 87th minute, Ecker Adams offside as Sevilla continued to push to put the game away. 88th minute, De Jong out for Christensen. In the 90th minute, Rooney shoots in a 3v1 situation instead of passing, and it is blocked by the keeper again. And I will say, for those who are trying to blame Rooney Bardghji for his time and his appearance, no, he was creating things in the match. Barcelona was never able to take a foothold in that match, and I think, as the veterans would probably tell you in that side, before you blame a teenager, you're going to blame the experienced players. Then headline 5 is utter embarrassment. Let's be quick, because we still, unfortunately, somehow, after the 90th minute, have 2 goals to talk about. 3-1, and since Barcelona did not score on the Rudy chance, immediately comes the other way. Carmona getting in behind on the left side, Barcelona with numbers, pushing forward, and Balde upfield. He had to track back to defend it, not enough time. And I know it was deflected ever so slightly, but Tech, at that angle, he has to save it. At that angle, that has got to be a goalkeeper save. I thought he was fine up to that point. Very little he could do on the first 2 goals, but the third one, yeah, Tech, you got to keep your team in the game there. Then in the 93rd minute, it's initially a red to Peque Fernandez, the former La Masia player. VAR looked at it and it's changed from a red to a yellow. I don't know, I actually thought that was pretty dicey. The ref said he pulled out in time. I'm not so sure about that, but it didn't matter because then the 4-1 shortly thereafter, Barca with numbers upfield still. No excuses though for Barcelona. You got to be tighter here because all the pundits now are going to talk about the high line being the problem. No, it wasn't necessarily just the high line. It's the pressure from Barcelona. They looked a bit slow. De Jong and Pedri both mentioned fatigue in their post-game interviews, which does seem more like a trend than anything else. And we've seen all of players around world football speaking about the fatigue, especially with the international break coming. Break does not mean break when it comes to the top players in world football. Ecker Adams, though, on this 4th goal, the sub scores in transition, that high line bleeding goals. And Kubarsi also looked slow against a fresh Ecker Adams. There's nothing Kubarsi really could do, but he also did look fatigued himself. So that was that. It was a disgusting showing from the Blaugrana, and now that bad taste is going to stick in Kool-Aid's mouths for probably the next 2 weeks over the international break. And between Hansi Flick and then me on this show trying to talk to some experts, all the hope is that Barca can figure this out before El Clasico in a few weeks, because that match is now going to be pretty necessary for Real Madrid not to necessarily run away, but create some distance by the winter time between Barcelona and Real Madrid at the top of the table. I do, as I said, appreciate everybody that has been joining me on this journey so far. Yeah, some of the results haven't gone Barca's way to start this season, but I still have a lot of hope for things that are being built. I still have a lot of trust in Hansi Flick. That really is the most important thing. And I think this team have the tools, the weapons, and yes, even a little bit of depth with all those players in Lamine Yamal, Rafinha, Fermin Lopez, Juan Garcia. The cavalry will be back, and hopefully Hansi Flick has sorted a few things out by then. And until then, please, again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Stick with me in the orbit here on the podcast apps and on Patreon. I've also got Discord, Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. I'm there, and I also am going to continue to update you over this international break with some of La Masia stuff going on, because that actually has been fun and exciting. So until then, as always, Forza Barca.